I'm sure the Honorable Joe Volpe would be happy to answer them.
Why not?
Spend a few minutes on how many meetings we had at Casa Calarco over the last 10 years to get a Mid-Canada corridor highway that would have, and when you sit back today and think that the Ring of Fire, this national highway, had we gone ahead with it, and Martin promised us that we would, that Ring of Fire would have solved the problems of transportation of the mining products out of the Ring of Fire. You know, just
Nobody ever said that Joe was going to be kind to his former colleagues. But you know, Casa Calarco was a little restaurant, oh, maybe about the size of 3 tables together. There were actually 4 tables in this little hole in the wall that we discovered, I don't know, it was a Calabrese guy. And he was giving us, you know, he said, I want to have pasta al dente, because we were going to some of these crazy places where people said, we're going to have you eat Italian. You know, Ottawa, it's like nobody ever learned to cook in that city. So what we did is we said, why don't we go to a place where maybe we can tell somebody how we want things done, right? So we go to this place, it's about 1 kilometer from our office, and we meet this little guy, and he was happy. He has a rose in a rose garden to see us. He says, well, I recognize you, and I recognize you, and we're bringing a couple of our colleagues over. We were talking about transportation issues, and he says, well, you can eat this, and you can eat that. I said, please, don't tell me what you've got on the menu. This is what I want, this is what Joe wants, and I want it this spicy, this level, and that level. He says, but, you know, but. I said, well, ma che tipo di cuoco sei? You know, what kind of cook are you? You're going to cook for us. He says, yeah, but this guy doesn't look like he eats le cose picante. I said, oh, don't worry. This guy here, he likes everything in butter. But you're going to give him oil and you're going to put a lot of spice in it. So we used to go there once a week to have food that was actually edible. And he would have these things that, you know, like, what do you call it, perline, you know, smelts. And he would do them in a particular way. You know, this is in Ottawa, that's all they do, smelts. So make them different for the love of God. You know, it's got to be something else as an antipasto. So, and give me some good bread, good Calabrese bread. Don't give me that stuff that they go buy over at the local, I don't know, hasty market. It's not much harder than a marshmallow. You know, you're talking with some Italians here. They like things nice and hard. They got to fight their food. He says, well, you know, Mr. Volpe, you know, I deal with a lot of bureaucrats. I said, those guys don't know what they're talking about anyway. Do you think they know anything about food? Remember? I said, we need to have this table out here. There's be 4 or 5 of us, and we're going to do transportation issues. We don't want to be bothered. And when any of these bureaucrats come over, send them over to the other side of the room. It's small anyway. But anyway, we had pretty well the run of the place. But we didn't go there every night. We went to this other guy, Tosca, another Calabrese guy. So I said to him, do you have that? La pasta was al dente. I go, al dente. Listen, I don't want that kind of al dente. I want a piece of pasta that I gotta chew. And he goes, okay. So we moved over there, and Paul Martin would come. We'd go up on the 2nd floor, remember? Every time we went over 4, we'd have this meeting upstairs. We were putting all this transportation strategy everywhere, and Paul was giving, yeah, I'll do it. Paul, we're Italian. You got it. If you say you're gonna do it, we're gonna hold you to it. You gotta do it, we're gonna hold you to it. Let me repeat it a 3rd time, Paul. Yeah, but you guys don't, Paul, when you're eating with an Italian over a meal, you don't want it to be your last one. So we had this kind of conversation. And then that guy went out of business.
yes, he did go.
He did. We had to go to another place, Giovanni's, remember? First time we went there. And there's this guy, Cosimo. So, where was Cosimo? There was another Cosimo here this morning. I know that the guy had to be Calabrese because of one. Cosimo has a Calabrese face, right? He's a big guy, a real beast. I said, Santi Cosimo, said, ma la pasta è fatta in casa. That means it's homemade, right? He said, yeah. I said, sicuro. Don't tell me that you just went over to the local pastry shop, picked up something, but no, la facciamo noi, non ti preoccupare, la fai al dente. Oh, eppure questo mi domanda. So I said, this guy here, this Polentone, that's the way he likes this. He said, well, how come he doesn't have this? He says, because I'm his advanced man. So I say, this is what he's going to eat, and he says, okay. So we started using the back of the Giovanni's, remember? Again, Paul Martin would come. I said, Paul, we're reminding you, this is the third time. Oh, yeah, no problem. Ring of fire. Yeah, no problem. I said, but those, those mezzimati that don't want to spend that money, we got to do it. It's for Ontario. You want me to be the minister of Ontario when we become the government? We got to do something. So Joe was here. This guy's likely to be a heavy-duty minister. I got to be good to him, So anyway, we had these constant meetings at restaurants. And then we ended up meeting Cellucci, the ambassador from the United States. Why? Because we had in part of our plan engaging the American authorities in what was going to happen in transportation. And Cellucci, he thought it was just fabulous that he would come up to Ottawa, and there's this group of members of parliament who were Italian who wanted to give him the time of day. So we organized a meal, remember? A lunch, because he's a busy guy, at Giovanni's. So we went, so where are we going to sit? Well, let's sit over here at the window seat. Stupid. You don't sit in the window seat. Not if you're an American ambassador. So there's a booth. We go there. We want to talk about transportation. So it says, Joe, let's go over there early. So Joe and I, a couple of mamluks, we show up at the restaurant early. Said to Cosmo, we got this, the ambassador's coming over soon. He says, his people were already here. I said, oh, shoot. They probably came and checked him out to see whether he had other business on the side. All right. I said, so who came with him? He says, the RCMP. There's two of them at that table over there. I said, oh, just two? He says, there's two CIA people over there. He says, oh, that's good. And there's two in that car across the street. I said, well, that's six. He says, and there's another two over there. And when that guy pulls up, he's pulling up with another two in front and another two behind. I said, have you got enough room in this bloody restaurant for a dinner for 3 mamalukes? He says, oh, yeah, no problem. So Cellucci comes in. And it's like we had become kings. The guy calls me, oh, un po' qua, un po' là, poi questo, poi quest'altro. I said, well, who's going to pick up this tab? This guy's running up on a tab that's like forever. And we got all these security agents that got to be fed. And Cellucci said, I'm picking it up. I said, oh, man. So you know why I picked it up? About 3 months later, the RCMP went to visit Cosmo. And they said, Cosmo, you have another business that you're not telling us about. And it starts with a C. I said, oh, that's why that pasta tasted good. So anyway, Cosmo kept giving us good treatment while we were talking about transportation issues. And he was a guest of Government Hotel for about 5 or 6 months, then came back, and I said, you okay, Cosmo? He says, yeah, people got confused about some things. Typical Calabrese response. Those guys got confused. What can I do? So I said, well, that's great. Now we've got members of cabinet who are in a room with people that the RCMP have confused with activity that's not necessarily part of CISA, CIA, and RCMP approved agencies. So Cosmo, don't do this to us. He says, no, it's okay, don't worry, we're all right. I said, you got our picture. As soon as you walk into this guy's restaurant, there's his picture and there's my picture. I said, what are you telling everybody? He said, I'm telling them that we're okay. So you tell me whether we did good things in transportation, whether we would have done more. I don't know why Paul Martin didn't do the Ring of Fire He was so busy, he was up to his eyeballs with people who were picking on him to do this, to do that. And instead of talking about a transportation economic policy that had to do with exploiting the natural resources that are resident for us in Ontario, to build a transportation policy and all the secondary industries that developed from it, because it was a lot of money, we ended up frittering away opportunities by talking about, well, human rights is a little bit like the Sochi Games. You got athletes from 185 countries, I don't know whatever the number is, all over the world that you guys are talking about whether, it's human rights. Yeah, human rights. There are people killing each other in Kiev. There are people killing each other in Iraq. There are people killing each other in Iran. The Israelis are talking about this and that and the other stuff. People are blowing up their relatives in Venezuela. Now we got to talk about whether this is right for the Russians. And those guys don't care anyway. Nobody does. What you do is your business. So why should we be worried? So instead of spending our energies on good, sound economic policies, we spent our energies being nice guys. Yeah, Joe, that's a long answer, right?
That was pretty accurate, though.
Yeah, well, you like the part about eating well.
I'm sorry?
You like the part about eating well.
Yeah.
Ambassador Chilucci, came to Toronto one day and he calls me up and he says, Joe, where the hell are you? I said, why? So I came down here because you told me that there was going to be a really good restaurant down here. I'm sitting across the table from Kamutsi, and Kamutsi says, I don't know where that guy is. He's supposed to be in Toronto. So I asked Kamutsi if he checked with me if I was coming to Toronto first. The two buds go together, go eating someplace. And when the waiter brings in the wine, at the last minute, they realize that maybe Volpe might wanted to have joined him. He didn't. But they struck out a great relationship. Good guy.
He was good.
He passed away too, right?
He was
very
right.
fortunate. Some good people, they do some interesting things. Anyway, I don't know, Joe, did you want somebody
But
else?
could you imagine?
You're gonna ask me another question.
Well, can you imagine that highway going north, east and west across the north? It was $18 billion.
Up to 27.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just wasn't going anywhere. We just couldn't convince people.
Could have gone.
It should have gone. The guys from Quebec were saying, 25% of that 27's got to come in through Montreal or wherever. What for? There's nothing going through Montreal. They're going through Montreal and they're to end up on the 401 to go down to Windsor and to Toronto. So, but even if we did that, if you got 25% of 27 million, so you're looking at, what does that come up to? $7 million bucks? $7 billion. So now you got 20 left. And everybody said, but you can't put 18 of that 20 just in that spot. Everybody suddenly wanted most of that 20. So you couldn't possibly build. So you have to put more money into building that roadway. There wasn't political will to do it. But lots of people would be thinking today it would have been great for us to do it. I'm gonna stop. It was the same thing. Remember, we're sitting around a cabinet table, and I guess it was the Chinese came in, and they wanted us, and the Americans, they wanted to go into Halifax Harbor, which is either the best or the second best natural harbor in the world. And they said, why don't you guys clean it up? And what we'll do is we'll bring our super tankers into Halifax Harbor, because you can do that. So, again, two mamalukes. We turned around and said, it's a good idea. How much is it going to cost? Not a hell of a lot of money. It certainly costs less than that stupid bridge hooking up New Brunswick to PEI. $2 billion. And now that they've paid it all off, they want the federal government to pick it up again because they don't want to pick up the maintenance cost. This is great. So we said, okay, why don't we do this as an economic development program? Let's clean up that harbor. Let's bring in all of that international trade. We'll cut out a lot of activity out of New York. People will come in through Halifax. We'll build railway and roads going across New Brunswick into southern Quebec and then back into Toronto.
Yeah.
As soon as we said that, those guys from Halifax said, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. Why not? Well, we don't think it's right. 5 years later, So, well, maybe we should clean up the harbor. Why? Because everybody's gone over to New York now when we said that that's what was gonna happen. Remember that discussion? So sometimes as short-sighted people take control of the agenda. Joe and I, and a lot of other MPs, didn't suffer from that restraint. They said, you're here to do something, let's see if we can do it. It sounded like a great idea. I said this morning to some people that, I was talking to guys from Halifax. So why is it that of all the people that came through Halifax and their descendants, nobody stuck around? I said, well, we don't know. I said, yeah, you know what? All those Europeans that came through here, they used to hear opportunity talking about that. You guys over here, you hear this. And that's it. And you prevent federal governments from putting in a sound system so that you guys can hear it as well. Right? And we ended up frittering away money on other silly things. That's a condemnation of government. It's not a condemnation of a party or preference for one party over another. It's just that the process sometimes eats away at good ideas. I'm happy to say that Joe and I didn't let that fool us too much, because we would always recover our sanity by going to eat at a good Italian restaurant. We actually made a few Italian restaurants. Anyway, sorry Roy, and sorry everybody for rambling on.
Joe, in conclusione, un bel bicchiere di vino fa tutto scordare.
Sì, va bene, fa tutto scordare, ma io non voglio scordare niente, per la verità. I'm sorry, you guys are looking at me in Italian. Yeah.
Quick question, you say you have 300 kiosks with your Corriere Canadese?
Well, we don't have kiosks, we have 300 points of sale. So there are stores that carry our product, there's 300 of them. We're aiming to get to 1,200, which was an initial number. I think it was an imaginative number, to tell you the truth. I think the real number is about 600. We expect to get to 400 now, but some of those are resident in London and places between London and Windsor, a lot more down along the Niagara Peninsula, so we're picking that up. There are some even up in Ottawa, but I said I'm not gonna spend, to truck the product up to Ottawa, you have to go to Montreal first. So you truck it to Montreal, and then from Montreal they truck it over to Ottawa. I don't know why that makes sense to somebody, but it has everything to do with the territory that distributors are allowed to operate in. So I said, how much does it cost me to get a newspaper out to somebody in Ottawa? $3. I said, my hands on me a shame, I get $1 for 256 copies per year. I charge everybody $1, so I charge them $200. So I have to start charging people $3. Well, how many people are going to buy my newspaper at $3 a copy? That's $750. They're going to say, well, Italian culture is nice, but I'll wait till it comes out free on the internet. It's not going to be free. So, but we're going to give everybody exposure to it for the first couple of weeks. But it's expensive. So we would have had 30 or 40. So we have to work on a different distribution model. We had about 40 places in Montreal. Again, there we have to have a different distribution model. Windsor, 7,000 Italians in 5 clubs between Windsor and London. They all want me to go there and distribute my paper. I said, well, how much are you going to pay for this? Well, I can't afford to do that. Until I start making some money, I can't invest in giving you free copy. But it's important for the community. Yeah, it's important for the community. Why don't you put up some money? For cents, huh? You can write it off anyway. So, well, you're being too cynical. No, I'm not being cynical. You can write it off. It doesn't hurt your cash flow at all. And we'll deliver. And we'll write about Windsor. We'll write about London. We'll write about Leamington. We'll write about St. Thomas. We'll go every place in between. So every day we have people call us and say, Mr. Volpe, my neighbor got it, but I didn't get it. Well, where did your neighbor get it? She went to the store. Well, why don't you go to the same place? Well, I didn't like to go out in a bad way. Oh, my God, what are you going to do? So, there we are.
So, Joe, does that mean that there won't be any distribution for a while?
For a little while. There was distribution in Victoria, there was distribution in Vancouver, and Kelowna, Calgary, and Edmonton. But that's when the Italian government was picking up some of the cost. So you could say, okay, you go 50-50. I pay for the construction cost, the fabrication cost, and somebody else picks up the distribution cost. That's fair. But you have to have people over there who actually want to write some things. So these guys over here, they're capable of doing copy, and it enriches the paper to do that copy. I think that here in Thunder Bay, believe it or not, I'll bet you that if we put our minds to it, we could probably have at least 1,000 home distribution copies. But you need to have a printer locally and a distribution system locally. And I mean, that's home delivery. Otherwise, you're stuck at just stores or people coming here. That's not bad, but places like this, in Toronto, for example, have said, that's what we want to do because we want people to come into the club. So what we'll do is we'll buy 5 copies and hope that people come in here and read it here. Well, I said, yeah, that's fine, except that those 5 copies prevent me from selling another 10. So why don't you buy 15? And just pay me the costs. And then that way you can have, it's a symbiotic relationship. Get people coming into this place. Shit happen. People come into a club to do what? To come to play cards. Maybe they come to do a little bit of bocce. They come to talk to people. You've got a newspaper there to keep them occupied. It can be a local paper, it can be an English language paper, or it can be our paper. At the very least, what happens with our paper is vedi che succede in Italia, vedi che fanno quei disgraziati a Toronto, the Hamilton, and other places. So that's what we're aiming for.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is coffee and tea on the side. If you would like to have some refreshments at this point.
Very good.
And Joe Volpe will still be here, and you can ask him any questions you would like. So thank you very much for your attendance, for coming, and we, again, thank Joe Volpe for...
Thank you very much, Roy.
Thank you.
Thank you.